parents abandoned me to have their separate happy families. Now they want me back, but I hate them. At 15, life was supposed to be about exploring friendships, discovering passions, and making mistakes with a safety net of parental guidance. Instead, my world had become a juggling act of two households, each steeped in its own new family drama, neither with room for me. It wasn't just that my parents had remarried, it was that in their new lives, they had inadvertently, or perhaps conveniently, reshuffled their priorities to exclude me. My father had married Clara, the woman he had an affair with during his marriage to my mother. She had brought her son, Jacob, into the marriage, and soon after they had Mia, my half-sister. Dad's new family seemed to consume all of his energy and attention. I had hoped to be a big sister that Mia could look up to, and maybe even a friend to Jacob. But at every turn, I was reminded subtly, yet unmistakably, that I was an outsider. The pictures on the mantels, the family calendars marked with their activities. None included me unless it was a reminder for my weekend visits, which they seemed to dread. During these visits, I often felt more like a guest than a daughter. Conversations at the dinner table flowed around me, about schools I didn't attend and people I didn't know. When I tried to contribute, sharing stories of my own experiences, I was often met with distracted nods or polite smiles before the focus shifted back to Clara's children and their lives. It was as though I was a mild inconvenience, disrupting the well-oiled routine of their household. My mother's house wasn't much better. She had remarried Mark, a man who had always been kind to me but distant, as if he were unsure of his role in my life. Together, they had Emily, and it became painfully clear that she was the center of their world. My visits there were marked by a palpable sense of displacement. Toys and baby gear filled the living room. Spaces that used to be mine for homework or watching TV now catered to toddler needs. I tried to engage, to be the helpful older sister, but most times, I just ended up feeling more in the way than useful. "What about going to the park this weekend?" I once suggested, hoping for some family bonding time. "We actually planned a picnic with Emily's playgroup this Saturday," my mother replied, her voice tinged with apology that didn't quite reach her eyes. "But we'll try to do something together soon, okay?" Soon never seemed to come, and promises like these often evaporated into thin air, lost amid diaper changes and playdates that didn't include me. My room at her house, once a sanctuary filled with my posters and books, had slowly turned into a storage space for Emily's things as she outgrew them. Feeling increasingly alienated, I spent more and more time alone, retreating into books and writing journals. I wrote stories where I was the hero, the cherished daughter, or the adventurer on epic quests, anything that took me away from the reality of my situation. These writings became my escape, a way to live 1,000 lives in worlds where I mattered. As summer approached, I looked forward to spending time at my grandparents' house. Grandma always had a way of making me feel loved and seen. She'd listen to my stories, teach me recipes, and talk to me about her own life with a genuineness that was sorely missing in my interactions with my parents. But even that refuge was tainted when my father announced they were planning a 2-week vacation to Europe. Just him, Clara, Jacob, and Mia. The trip fell during my scheduled time with them. When I asked if I was going too, my father hesitated, his eyes darting away before meeting mine. "We thought you'd enjoy some time at your grandparents'. We'll call every day, and we'll plan something special when we get back," he promised, though the hollow in his words echoed in my chest. They did go to Europe, and the daily calls were brief check-ins, often filled with the noise of their excitement and adventures. I tried to be happy for Mia, who chirped endlessly about castles and gelato, but each call felt like a blade twisting deeper into the wound of exclusion. My mother, on the other hand, was overwhelmed with her work, and Emily. Calls to her were equally sporadic and rushed. "Mom, can we talk? I'm feeling really left out," I tried once, hoping to bridge the gap. "Oh, honey, it's just a busy time right now. Emily's teething, and you know how that goes. We'll talk soon, I promise. Love you." The promises became as empty as the looks of sympathy from friends who noticed my growing withdrawal and sadness. "It's like they don't really see me anymore," I confided in my best friend Sarah, one evening at her house, where her parents laughed and cooked together in the kitchen, a stark contrast to my own life. Sarah hugged me tightly, her words a soft whisper. "You deserve better, you know. You're worth more than being an afterthought." It was during one particularly lonely night at my grandparents' house that summer when the full weight of my situation settled on my shoulders. I realized that if I continued to wait for my parents to notice me, to value me as more than an obligation, I might wait forever. Fueled by a mix of hurt and determination, I made a decision that would change the course of my life. I wasn't going to be a secondary character in anyone's story, not even my own. I packed a bag, wrote a note to my grandparents, and took the first bus to Aunt Lucy's house, seeking the acceptance and love I was starved of. A place where I could be primary, seen, and valued. What awaited me there was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would no longer be overshadowed or overlooked, but instead, where I could start to heal and grow into the person I was meant to be. The bus ride to Aunt Lucy's was the longest 2 hours of my life, every mile stretching out as I wrestled with a mix of fear, relief, and uncertainty. I stared out the window, watching the landscape blur, my thoughts racing as fast as the scenery passed. The decision to leave hadn't been easy, but the stifling feeling of being an afterthought in my parents' lives had grown unbearable. I needed a change, a place where I could be seen as more than just a complication in someone else's family portrait. Aunt Lucy lived in a small town that always felt a world away from the city's chaos where my parents resided. Her home was a cozy 2-story house surrounded by a well-tended garden that bloomed with colors most of the year. The familiarity of it brought a comforting rush of nostalgia. This was a place of many summer visits, where I had always felt welcome and loved. As I stepped off the bus, the cool air of early evening brushed against my face, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from Aunt Lucy's garden. I dragged my suitcase behind me, its wheels thumping rhythmically against the pavement, a staccato beat to the turmoil inside me. Aunt Lucy was waiting at the door as I approached, her expression a mixture of concern and surprise. She didn't say anything at first, just opened her arms wide. The hug she gave me was tight and warm, a silent reassurance that I had made the right decision. "Aunt Lucy, what's going on, honey?" Her voice was gentle, inviting me to open up about everything. Me. "I can't do it anymore, Aunt Lucy. I just feel invisible there, like I'm just a guest in their lives, not a daughter." We sat down in her kitchen, a pot of tea between us, as I poured out everything. The neglect, the loneliness, the feeling of being perpetually out of place. Aunt Lucy listened, her brows knitting together in concern with every word I said. "Aunt Lucy, you're not a guest, my dear. You're family, and you always have a home here with me." The decision to stay with Aunt Lucy wasn't made in haste. It was the result of years of accumulated neglect and the cold realization that my parents, absorbed in their new lives, might never see me as more than an obligation. As we talked, Aunt Lucy didn't just offer me a room. She offered me a chance to reset my life on my own terms. Me. "Can I stay here? At least for a while?" Aunt Lucy. "Of course, you can stay as long as you need. We'll figure out the details later." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Aunt Lucy helped me enroll in the local high school, and we visited the town hall to formalize my living situation with her. Despite the chaos, there was a growing sense of stability and support that I hadn't felt in years. But the true test came when it was time to confront my parents about my decision. Aunt Lucy stood by me as I called them, her presence a calming force. "Dad, what's this about you staying with Lucy? Is this some kind of teenage rebellion?" His voice was a mix of confusion and irritation. It stung, but I was prepared. Me. "It's not rebellion, Dad. It's survival. I don't feel like part of your family anymore. I need to change." The conversation was difficult, filled with pauses and strained justifications. My mother cried, and my father argued, but I held firm, bolstered by Aunt Lucy's quiet strength beside me. "Mom, but we're your parents. We love you. You can't just decide to live somewhere else." Me. "I can, and I have. I need to be somewhere I feel wanted and valued." The call ended with a heavy silence, a clear divide between my old life and the new path I was forging. In the days that followed, the reality of my decision settled in. I was officially living with Aunt Lucy, attending a new school, and slowly rebuilding my sense of self-worth. School was a fresh start. I made friends who knew nothing of my family drama, who accepted me for who I was, not who my parents were. My grades improved as I found myself able to concentrate without the constant emotional turmoil that had clouded my mind before. Aunt Lucy encouraged my writing, pushing me to submit stories to local competitions and magazines. With each published piece, my confidence grew. Writing became more than a hobby. It was a lifeline, a way to process my emotions and reclaim my voice. Months turned into a year, and with every passing day, I felt stronger, more grounded. Aunt Lucy and I grew closer, our bond strengthening through shared meals, long walks, and endless conversations about life, love, and everything in between. Aunt Lucy, you're doing so well, darling. I'm so proud of the person you're becoming. Her words meant the world to me, filling the void left by my parents' sporadic attempts to reach out. Their calls became less frequent, and when they did call, the conversations were short, the distance between us palpable even through the phone. Living with Aunt Lucy wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a complete transformation of my daily life and mental landscape. The first few months were a mix of adjustment and discovery, as I navigated the new dynamics of my life in a small town where everyone seemed to know each other. Aunt Lucy's house, with its welcoming warmth and walls lined with photographs of happy memories, became my sanctuary. Aunt Lucy had always been the family matriarch, the one everyone relied on during tough times. Her ability to listen without judgment and her unwavering support gave me the courage to open up about my feelings and the challenges I faced. She encouraged me to explore my interests, particularly my writing, which had always been a private escape for me. Aunt Lucy, you have a gift, you know. Your words, they have power. Why not share them with the world? Her encouragement led me to join the school's literary club, where I met other students who shared my passion for stories and storytelling. Under her guidance, I started to compile a portfolio of my work, submitting pieces to student journals and local publications. The first time I saw my name in print, a thrill of excitement surged through me. It was validation, a sign that what I had to say mattered. School became a place where I could excel without the shadows of my family drama looming over me. I made friends, real friends who liked me for who I was, not for the drama that followed me like a shadow. My grades improved significantly as I found myself able to focus on my studies, no longer preoccupied with navigating the unpredictable waters of my parents' attention. Literary Club Advisor. Your voice is unique and your perspective is insightful. You could really make a name for yourself in the writing community. Their words were encouraging, but it was Aunt Lucy's continued support that really pushed me to aim higher. She set up a small workspace for me in the corner of the living room, complete with a desk, a comfortable chair, and shelves filled with books from classic literature to contemporary fiction. It was my little haven within our home, a place where I could write, think, and dream. As months turned into years, my portfolio of writings grew. I experimented with different genres and styles, from poignant short stories to compelling essays on human nature and personal identity. My writing started to gain attention beyond the local community, with invitations to participate in regional workshops and conferences. Aunt Lucy, see what you can achieve when you believe in yourself? I'm just so proud of you. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The emotional scars from my past with my parents sometimes resurfaced, especially during holidays or family gatherings when their absence was more pronounced. I struggled with feelings of abandonment and self-doubt, wondering if I had been too harsh in cutting them off. During one particularly low moment, Aunt Lucy found me staring at a blank page, the cursor blinking mockingly on the screen. Aunt Lucy, what's wrong, dear? Me. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Leaving them, starting over. Was it too much? Aunt Lucy, you did what you needed to do for your own health and happiness. That's not selfish, it's necessary. And look at how much you've grown. Her words were a balm to my troubled mind. She taught me that it was okay to put my own well-being first, that my feelings were valid and needed to be respected, even if that meant distancing myself from those who couldn't provide the support I needed. I leaned into my writing even more, using it as a tool to work through my emotions and to connect with others who might be going through similar experiences. My blog, which started as a small personal project, began to attract a wider audience. People from around the world reached out to share their stories with me, telling me how my words had touched their lives or given them the courage to make changes for their own well-being. Blog comment. Thank you for sharing your story. It's like you took the words right out of my heart. You've inspired me to seek happiness too. This connection with my readers fueled my passion and reaffirmed my decision to pursue a career in writing. It wasn't just about crafting stories. It was about making an impact, about weaving my personal truths into narratives that could resonate with others. As I approached the end of my high school career, the prospect of college loomed on the horizon. I applied to several programs, each step forward a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. When the acceptance letters started to arrive, each one felt like a confirmation of my new path, of the life I had chosen to build away from the shadow of my parents' neglect. The night before my high school graduation, Aunt Lucy and I sat on the porch, looking out at the stars. It was a clear night, the sky a tapestry of twinkling lights. Aunt Lucy, you're going to do great things, my dear. No matter where you go or what you do, remember that you are loved, you are seen, and you are capable of incredible things. Me. Thank you, Aunt Lucy, for everything. I don't think I could have done any of this without you. Her smile was soft, proud. Aunt Lucy, you did the hard work, my dear. I just provided the space for you to flourish. As I prepared to step into the next chapter of my life, I carried with me the lessons I had learned from Aunt Lucy. To value myself, to seek out environments where I could thrive, and to never underestimate the power of a well-told story. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to see where my words would take me next. As the high school chapter of my life closed, the college years beckoned with promises of new beginnings and further independence. Choosing to attend a university with a strong creative writing program wasn't just about pursuing my passion. It was a strategic decision to mold my future, to cement my identity not just as a writer, but as an individual beyond my tumultuous family background. The transition to college was exhilarating, yet daunting. For the first time, I was truly on my own, navigating a larger world filled with diverse voices and stories. My dorm room became my new sanctuary, walls quickly plastered with inspirational quotes and snippets of my favorite poetry. It was here, amid the quiet hum of late-night oil burning, that my first novel began to take shape. Roommate, you're always typing away. What's the story about? Me. It's about a girl finding her place in the world despite her family. Kind of like a journey of self-discovery and resilience. Roommate. Sounds intense. Can't wait to read it someday. Her casual interest sparked a further drive in me. I spent countless nights refining my characters, weaving in elements of my own experiences with fictional twists that allowed me to explore deeper themes of betrayal, acceptance, and healing. Classes were a revelation. Professors challenged my thinking and stretched my abilities. I thrived under their guidance, soaking up every critique and discussion, using them to fuel my writing. One professor in particular took a keen interest in my development. Professor Harding, your voice is unique, and your narrative technique is sophisticated for someone your age. Have you considered publishing? His words were both a validation and a challenge. Publishing had always been a dream, a far-off goal, but Professor Harding's encouragement brought it within reach. Me, I think about it a lot, but it feels so daunting. How do I even begin? Professor Harding, start by sharing your work. Enter competitions, submit to journals, get feedback. It's all about taking those first steps. I followed his advice, sending out pieces to various magazines and entering every writing contest that seemed a good fit. Rejections were plenty, each a sting. But then the acceptances began to roll in, each one a small victory, a step closer to my dream. By my sophomore year, a short story of mine won a national writing competition. The story, a reflective piece on lost childhood and the quest for identity, resonated with many, earning me a small but appreciative following. Literary magazine editor. Your story has touched many of our readers. We'd love to feature more of your work. This recognition was more than an accolade. It was affirmation that my experiences, my voice, had value in the wider world. It propelled me to finish my novel, a process that was both cathartic and transformative. Balancing academics and writing was a challenge, but the discipline it required shaped not only my time management skills, but also my priorities and ambitions. The novel became my thesis project, a culmination of my college experience and personal journey. Graduation approached with the promise of new beginnings. My novel, now complete, was a manuscript brimming with the essence of my struggles and triumphs. The process of querying agents and publishers began, a daunting phase filled with hope and uncertainty. Then, just a week after graduation, a call changed everything. Agent, we love your manuscript. It's raw, powerful, and beautifully written. We believe it has significant potential. Let's talk about your future. The offer to publish my first novel came as a surreal moment of triumph. My work, once a private solace, was about to be shared with the world. The excitement was overwhelming, but so was the anxiety of how my story, so deeply personal, would be received. The months that followed were a whirlwind of edits, cover designs, and marketing plans. I was involved in every step, determined to ensure that the final product was true to my vision. Launch day was a mixture of nerves and excitement. Holding the first printed copy of my novel was a moment of profound achievement. The cover, featuring a lone figure standing at a crossroads, perfectly encapsulated the essence of the journey within. Aunt Lucy, I always knew you could do it. This is just the beginning, my dear. Her pride in my achievement was a balm to the lingering doubts about my family's absence in this significant moment. They hadn't been part of this journey. their interest in my life having waned to sporadic, almost obligatory calls that barely scratched the surface of genuine connection. The novel hit the shelves and was met with enthusiasm. Reviews praised the authenticity of the narrative and the compelling voice of a new author who had not only written a story, but lived it. Book review. A stunning debut that delves deep into the complexities of family and personal growth, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As interviews and book signings filled my schedule, I felt a sense of fulfillment that went beyond professional success. My story was out in the world, touching lives, encouraging others to face their past and forge their own paths. This chapter of my life, my rise as a writer, was not just about overcoming the neglect and invisibility I had felt as a child. It was about reclaiming my narrative, proving that out of neglect could come strength, and from invisibility, a spotlight that shone on my own terms. My journey was a testament to the power of perseverance, the importance of supportive relationships, and the transformative impact of owning one's story. As my career began to blossom, I looked forward to the next chapters, ready to explore new stories, new challenges, and new opportunities to make an impact. As my first book found its audience and carved out a space in the literary world, my life underwent a transformation. The once uncertain writer, who grappled with feelings of neglect and invisibility, was now standing confidently on her own 2 feet, recognized and respected. This new chapter wasn't just about embracing independence. It was about confronting the past and negotiating the complexities of potential reconciliation with my family. The success of my book brought unexpected challenges, one of which was the re-emergence of my parents in my life. Their sudden interest coincided suspiciously with my growing public profile. My father reached out first, his voice a mixture of pride and awkwardness over the phone. "Dad, I read your book. It's really something. You've done well for yourself, and I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud." Me. "Thank you, Dad. It means a lot to hear that." The words were polite, but I felt a surge of mixed emotions. His praise was something I had longed for in my youth, yet now it rang hollow, complicated by years of distance and detachment. As I navigated the waters of newfound fame, my mother also made attempts to reconnect. She sent emails filled with apologies and explanations, trying to bridge the gap of years with words that seeped with regret. "Mom, I know I wasn't there for you as I should have been. I can't change the past, but I hope we can build something new. Maybe start over?" Reading her words, I felt the old ache of abandonment stir within me. The desire for a family that cared was entangled with the pain of their previous neglect. I turned to Aunt Lucy for advice, her wisdom always a guiding light. "Aunt Lucy, you have the power to choose who you let into your life now. Whatever decision you make, ensure it's for your happiness, not out of obligation or guilt." Her advice resonated deeply. I was no longer the powerless child yearning for attention and love. I was an accomplished adult who could set boundaries and demand respect. I agreed to meet my parents, each separately, to explore the possibilities of reconciliation. The meetings were emotionally charged, each a delicate dance of old hurts and tentative hopes. Meeting my father at a quiet cafe, we talked awkwardly at first, tiptoeing around the deeper issues. Eventually, our conversation ventured into more personal territory. "Dad, I missed a lot, didn't I? I'm sorry for that. The book, it opened my eyes to a lot of things I didn't want to see before." Me. "It wasn't just the book, Dad. It was years of feeling left out. I'm glad you're seeing it now, but it's hard. It's really hard." The conversation was a start, a small step towards understanding, if not yet forgiveness. With my mother, the encounter was similarly fraught with a history of emotional neglect that couldn't be undone in a single meeting. "Mom, I should have fought harder for you, for our relationship. I let too many things get in the way. Can we try to make it right?" Me. "Maybe, Mom, but it's going to take time. I can't just forget the past." In the midst of these tentative reconnections, I continued to write. My experiences with my parents fueled my second book, a deeper exploration into the themes of forgiveness and resilience. Writing became my therapy, my way of processing complex feelings and evolving from them. As my professional life flourished, I found solace and joy in new relationships and continued support from friends and readers who connected with my journey. Book signings and literary festivals not only bolstered my career, but also reinforced my sense of community and belonging in the literary world. One particular event stood out, a panel discussion on family dynamics in literature, where I shared the stage with other authors who had explored similar themes. Panel moderator: "Your books touch heavily on family and forgiveness. What drives you to write about these themes?" Me. "It's personal. My writing is a reflection of my life's complexities, the struggles with family, the journey towards self-discovery, and the ongoing process of defining what forgiveness means to me. The audience's response was overwhelmingly positive, with many expressing how my stories had given them the courage to face their own familial challenges. Independence wasn't just about living apart from my parents or succeeding on my own. It was about owning my story, controlling how I let it define me, and choosing how and with whom I shared my life. The year rolled on, and with it, my relationships with my parents slowly, tentatively, began to mend. There were setbacks, moments when old wounds reopened and the distance seemed too great to bridge. But there were also moments of genuine connection, phone calls that didn't feel obligatory, visits that didn't end in tears. Dad, I'm learning, about you, about myself. It's not easy, but I want to try. Me, that means a lot, Dad. Let's keep trying. Reconciliation was not a swift process, nor was it linear. It required patience, understanding, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and each other. As I penned the final chapters of my second book, I reflected on the growth and changes the past years had brought. My narrative had expanded beyond my own story to touch the lives of others, and in doing so, it had changed me. Independence and reconciliation. These themes intertwined in my life as I continued to write, to heal, and to hope. Each word I wrote was a testament to my journey, a declaration that, despite the past, the future was mine to write. In the burgeoning light of my career and evolving personal life, I looked forward to the unfolding chapters, knowing that whatever they held, I was now the author of my own story, free to craft its path with wisdom, courage, and an open heart. Edit. Because people think I just made it up, and I am a moody teen. You know when you are at a friend's house where their parents don't particularly like you, and you feel tense all the time, and you feel like you shouldn't be there. That was the feeling I constantly had at their houses. I know that my stepfather doesn't like me that much. My parents would both fight about who keeps me longer, but not in the sense I want to have her longer. But I took her last weekend. It's your turn. Also planning fun activities for the day after I leave, my father and his wife would often schedule visits to the parks or bigger trips, specifically to the weeks my mother had me and my mother and her husband would leave me alone at home so they could go out with the baby. Every chance they got, they would ship me off to grandma's or my aunt's place with some excuse and then do family stuff. Also, when you went through the houses, there were barely any pictures of me. They had big portraits of my siblings and them together, but almost none of mine. They shipped me off to my grandma's and grandpa's for a whole summer and only called twice. When there are family functions, I am often excluded, like my dad had a family barbecue and didn't invite me. They forgot my birthday on more than one occasion, and when they remembered, they got me a $10 Starbucks gift card, even when they know I don't like Starbucks. So no, they never straight up said it, but they didn't hide it either.